Hi, everyone. Lauren Culp here, President and CEO at CUInsight.com. And I am bringing you a three questions video interview today with a special guest from one of our good partner companies. Joining me is John Owens. He is the general manager at Elan Credit Card. I am really excited to talk to John, and we love our partnership with Elan. We're going to be talking about credit cards, about partnerships, so it's going to be a great conversation. John, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
My first question for you, as fraud is on the rise and as Alana is a leader in payments, what do you think credit unions should really be aware of right now?
Yeah, credit card fraud is on the rise, and importantly, smaller banks and credit unions are the ones getting hit the hardest, right? So, Visa estimates that smaller banks and credit unions have fraud rates that are about 50% higher than the largest issuers. So I think the first thing to know is and keep track of is what are the levels of fraud? What are the trends that you're seeing? How do those fraud trends compare to your peers, right? So, and you know the tough part of that statistic is that the bad guys know that the smaller banks, credit unions, issuers are not investing as heavily as the largest national issuers, and so they target smaller banks and credit unions. So, the reason for the disparity is the largest issuers have invested millions of dollars into what's becoming a quite expensive race against the bad guys who are becoming quite technologically savvy and deploying techniques that 3 years ago nobody would have caught. So it costs a lot to keep up with the bad guys. Unfortunately, we're seeing an increased use in AI to impersonate card members. Uh, we're seeing AI being used to correct the stuff that we used to catch very easily 2 to 3 years ago. So all of staying up with the advanced technology from the cyber criminals is quite expensive, and we have to deploy it. We do this for 1,200 banks and credit unions, and so it's a technology must for us. We have to keep up with the bad guys.
The statistic you shared is really striking about how much more fraud impacts the small guys compared to the big shops. What sort of investment, prevention, and protection is in place to protect those card members?
Yeah, so we have a four-pillar strategy. The first is real-time decisioning and scoring. So we look at device and behavioral biometrics. We can detect bot speed. So we have bad guys out there with bots that are hitting the system with multiple applications at the same time. So when someone calls in, we have tools that listen to the background noise. All of those are tools that we have deployed in the last few years to combat the rise in technology-led fraud. So that's the first pillar. Second is just the treatment strategy. So we have a dedicated large group of in-house professionals that have tools to initiate real-time declines or block specific authorizations. And beyond that, anything that looks suspicious can be routed to for manual review. Next pillar is notifications. We have to advise the member when something looks awry, and they can be notified via whatever channel they want, right? Call, text, email. And then finally, event resolution. This is to minimize the downtime, right? Fraud does happen, and when it does, we want to minimize the friction for the credit union member. We'll provide provisional credit as we check out what we think is a suspicious activity. So in any case, that's a very quick view of our four-pillar approach to keeping members safe.
I love some of the things that you're talking about because I never would have even thought of some of them as ways to detect fraud. So it is really cool to hear a little bit more about the nuts and bolts of how Elan is able to catch some of those things. And I'm also really interested to hear what would you say are the benefits for credit unions of exploring partnerships during a time like this where there is such a surge in fraud and such need for heightened compliance and risk assessment?
Yeah, so it's a good question. Um, Credit unions for sure want to control the member experience because it's something they do very well. I would say for something like fraud, that's very dynamic, very costly to keep up with. The right bet may very well be partner with someone who has to, like Elan, make these investments continually, have dedicated staff that do nothing but try to keep up with the trends, monitor industry changes, implement real-time tools. We do this very well. And again, that speaks back to um, the the cyber criminals legitimately don't target the largest issuers like Elan because they know they're up against a web of fraud tools and dedicated specialists. So again, to the question, what would a credit union consider, particularly for battling or trying to manage complex things like regulatory environment or the fraud schemes of today, consider partnering with someone like Elan because we do the lifting on your behalf and you could focus on what you're good at, which is growing and servicing your members.
Amazing. I know a lot of credit unions work with Elan. As we wrap up the conversation, do you have asks of our listeners today?
We love credit unions. We believe that we service your members very well. Again, let us do what we're very good at, and that allows you to do what you're very good at. And if you do have interest, please contact us. I believe we have a link, but CUPartnership.com, and we'd love to talk to you.
That sounds great. We will put that link in the post here. So anyone who's interested will see CUPartnership.com right there in the post to click on. John, thank you so much for your time today. It is so great getting to chat with you and learn a little bit more about fraud, about credit card protection, about the ways that we have to keep our members safe. So such a pleasure getting to chat with you today.
My pleasure. Thank you very much for the time.
Thank you. And thanks to all of our listeners today for tuning into this CU Insight 3 Questions video interview. And we will be back again next time.